The funeral home smelled of lilies and formaldehyde, a combination that would forever remind me of the day my brother decided to show his true colors. I stood by Dad's casket, my hand resting on the polished wood, whispering a final goodbye when Brandon's voice boomed across the room. "Attention, everyone." He clinked his whiskey glass with a pen, even though the reception hadn't started yet. "I know this is a difficult time, but I want to assure you all that Morrison Construction will continue to thrive under my leadership." I turned slowly, watching my older brother puff up his chest in his ill-fitting suit. He'd gained weight since I'd last seen him, his face flushed with alcohol and self-importance. "As Dad's son, I'll be taking over the company immediately. I've already spoken to our foreman about the transition." "Brandon," I said quietly, "Dad hasn't even been buried yet." He waved me off like I was an annoying fly. "Jessica, this is men's business. The construction industry isn't a place for women. You should focus on going through Mom's things. I'm sure there are recipe cards or photo albums you'd want." The room went silent. Our relatives, Dad's employees, and family friends all stared at Brandon in shock. Even Aunt Martha, who still believed women shouldn't wear pants, gasped at his audacity. "Excuse me?" I kept my voice level, though my hands were shaking. Brandon started over, reeking of whiskey and cheap cologne. "Look, Jess, I know you tried to help Dad with the business, playing secretary or whatever, but Morrison Construction needs a man at the helm, someone who understands real work, physical work, man's work." "Playing secretary?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you think I've been doing for the past 15 years? Whatever you want to call it. Filing papers, answering phones, that's not running a construction company. That's why Dad's will is just a formality. The eldest son inherits the family business. That's how it's always been." Our cousin Tony stepped forward. Brandon, maybe this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," Brandon bellowed. "Everyone needs to know there's stability, that a strong male leader is taking charge. Hell, I've already got plans to expand." Dad was too conservative, too cautious, probably because he was listening to her. He jerked his thumb at me. I smiled then, a small, private smile that made Brandon falter for just a moment. "You're right about one thing, Brandon. Dad's will is going to be very clear about the company's future." "Damn right it is." He raised his glass. "To Morrison Construction's new era under Brandon Morrison." A few people awkwardly lifted their glasses, most just stared at their shoes. 3 days later, we gathered in the office of Walter Brennan, Dad's attorney for the past 30 years. The reading was scheduled for 2 p.m., but Brandon showed up at 1:30 with a U-Haul and 4 of his drinking buddies. "Thought I'd get a head start on moving into Dad's office," he announced, barging past Walter's secretary. "No point waiting." I sat in the leather chair across from Walter's desk, reviewing emails on my phone. One from our biggest client confirming the next project, another from our steel supplier about the shipment I'd ordered last week. Business didn't stop for grief. Brandon plopped down beside me, spreading his legs wide and taking up as much space as possible. "Hope you found those recipes, Jess. Mom's apple pie was legendary." "I did, actually. Also found her engineering degree from Cornell. Did you know she designed 3 of the bridges Dad's company built in the 80s? Brandon snorted. "Yeah, well, that was different times. Dad probably helped her." Walter entered precisely at 2 p.m., carrying a thick folder and wearing an expression I couldn't quite read. He'd been smiling when I'd arrived, but now his face was carefully neutral. "Thank you both for coming," he said, settling behind his desk. "Before we begin, I want to offer my condolences again. William was not just a client but a dear friend." Yeah, we're all sad," Brandon interrupted. "Can we get to the will? I've got meetings with the crew at 4. Walter's eye twitched. "Of course, let me begin with the personal bequests." He read through the smaller items: Dad's watch collection to cousin Tony, his truck to Uncle Pete, various charitable donations. Brandon fidgeted impatiently, checking his phone and sighing dramatically. "Now, regarding Morrison Construction," Walter said, and Brandon sat up straighter. "I'm going to read William's exact words, as he was very specific." Walter cleared his throat and began, "Regarding my company, Morrison Construction, which I built from nothing into a $4.5 million enterprise, I leave the following. To my son Brandon Morrison, I leave my collection of construction magazines from the 1970s, which he seemed to enjoy reading when he briefly worked for me in the summer of 2018 before quitting after 3 days because, and I quote, 'real work is beneath me.' May they inspire him to actually finish something he starts." Brandon's face went from smug to confused to bright red. "What?" Walter continued. "To my daughter Jessica Morrison, I leave 100% ownership of Morrison Construction, all its assets, equipment, contracts, and accounts. This includes the main office building, the warehouse, all vehicles except the truck mentioned earlier, and all ongoing projects. What? Brandon rocketed out of his chair. That's impossible. I'm the son, the eldest child. Dad wouldn't. Please sit down, Mr. Morrison. I'm not finished. Walter's voice was stern. Your father anticipated your reaction and asked me to read this additional statement. Brandon, you've worked for my company a total of 3 days in your entire life. You showed up drunk on the second day and didn't show up at all on the third. Meanwhile, Jessica has been by my side for 15 years. She started as a laborer, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. She got her contractor's license at 23, her engineering degree at night while working full days. She's negotiated every major contract for the past decade, manages our finances, oversees quality control, and has the respect of every person who works for us. You called it men's business, son, but business doesn't care about gender, it cares about competence, dedication, and results. Jessica increased our revenue by 300% in the last 5 years. She implemented safety protocols that haven't just saved money but saved lives. She's the reason Morrison Construction went from a small family outfit to a major regional player. The only thing you've built, Brandon, is a reputation as a drunk who coasts on his father's name. That ends today. Brandon's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He can't do this. I'll contest it. I'll sue. Walter smiled then, and I understood why he'd been fighting to keep a straight face. Mr. Morrison, your father anticipated that as well. If you contest the will in any way, you forfeit the one thing he did leave you. What's that? Brandon asked suspiciously. A position at Morrison Construction. Jessica has been instructed to offer you an entry-level labor position at standard starting wages. You'll have the opportunity to work your way up, just like she did, just like your father did. If you last 6 months, you'll get a raise. If you last a year, you'll be eligible for promotion to crew supervisor. You expect me to work for her? Brandon's voice cracked. To take orders from my little sister? I expect you to either earn your place in this company or find something else to do with your life, I said, speaking for the first time since the reading began, just like I had to earn mine. This is bullshit. You manipulated him. You turned him against me. Walter pulled out another document. Actually, Mr. Morrison, your father recorded a video message 2 years ago, after you showed up to Christmas dinner drunk and told everyone that women in construction were just diversity hires. Would you like me to play it? Brandon's face went from red to purple. 2 years? He's been planning this for 2 years? Longer, actually. The first draft leaving the company to Jessica was written 10 years ago. He updated it periodically, always hoping you'd give him a reason to change it. You never did. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Brandon, the offer stands. Laborer position. Starting Monday, 7 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. Don't be drunk. And don't expect special treatment. Go to hell. He spat. I don't need your charity. I don't need any of this. You'll run that company into the ground within a year, and I'll be there to buy it for pennies on the dollar. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off Walter's wall. Walter bent to pick it up, a photo of him and Dad at a job site, both wearing hard hats and grinning at the camera. Your father would be proud of how you handled that. He'd be disappointed it came to this at all, I said, suddenly exhausted. Perhaps, but he knew Brandon's nature, just like he knew yours. Walter handed me a sealed envelope. He asked me to give you this privately. I opened it with trembling hands. Dad's handwriting, getting shakier in his final months but still distinctly his. Jessica. By now Brandon has probably made a scene and stormed out. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, especially while grieving, but I want you to know that this decision wasn't made out of anger at Brandon or favoritism toward you. It was made out of love for the company I built and respect for the person you've become. When you were 7, you used to come to job sites with me, while Brandon complained about the noise and dirt. You asked questions. How do we know the foundation is strong enough? Why do we use this type of steel instead of that one? What happens if it rains before the concrete sets? You weren't playing at being interested, you genuinely wanted to understand. At 7 years old, you had more curiosity about construction than Brandon has shown in his entire life. I promoted you to foreman when you were 25, not because you were my daughter, but in spite of it. I knew people would talk, would say I was playing favorites, so I made sure you were twice as qualified as anyone else, and you exceeded even that standard. The men respect you not because I told them to, but because you've earned it. You've worked beside them in 100-degree heat and freezing rain. You've never asked anyone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. You've had their backs, and they'll have yours. Brandon thinks strength comes from being loud and male, but real strength comes from competence, integrity, and caring about something bigger than yourself. You have all of that. I know you'll take Morrison Construction places I never dreamed of, build something amazing, sweetheart, and if Brandon ever humbles himself enough to actually work for it, maybe help him build something too. All my love. Dad. P.S. Your mother would be so proud. She always said you'd be the one to carry on the legacy. As usual, she was right. I wiped away tears, carefully folding the letter and tucking it into my purse. There's one more thing, Walter said. Your father updated his will last month with a final codicil. He wanted to make sure you knew that Brandon has a trust fund from his maternal grandmother, about $200,000, so he's not destitute, just delusional if he thinks he can buy the company. I laughed despite myself. Of course Dad would have checked. The next few months were a whirlwind. I officially took over Morrison Construction, though in practice I'd been running most of the operations for years. The transition was seamless, clients were relieved, employees were supportive, and business continued to grow. Brandon tried to make trouble at first. He showed up drunk at job sites, telling workers they should quit before that woman destroyed their livelihoods. The foreman, Big Jim, personally escorted him off the property and told him not to come back unless he was ready to put on a hard hat and work. He tried spreading rumors that I was sleeping with clients to get contracts. Our biggest client, Margaret Chin of Chin Development, shut that down hard with a cease and desist letter and a public statement about her 20-year relationship with Morrison Construction and her complete confidence in my leadership. 6 months after the will reading, I was reviewing bids in Dad's office, my office now, when my assistant knocked. Jessica? There's a Brandon Morrison here to see you. He says he's applying for the laborer position. I looked up, surprised. Through the window, I could see Brandon in the waiting area. He was sober, wearing clean work clothes, and staring at his hands. Send him in. He entered slowly, all his earlier bravado gone. Jess, Brandon, he cleared his throat. I wanted to apologize. For the funeral, for everything after, for the last 15 years. I waited. I blew through Grandma's money in 8 months, tried to start my own company just to show you up. Turns out knowing someone who owns a construction company doesn't mean you know how to run one. No, it doesn't. I've been working for Paulson Construction in Riverside, just basic labor, but, he met my eyes for the first time. I actually like it. The work. I mean, when I'm not hungover. Are you asking for a job? I'm asking for a chance. He pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. I've been sober for 60 days. I know that's not much, but it's a start. I studied my brother. He looked different. Not just the sobriety, but something in his posture. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. Laborer position, starting wage, you report to Jim, and if he says you're slacking, drunk, or disrespectful, you're gone. No second chances. I understand. And Brandon, you ever speak about this being men's business again, you're not just fired. I'll personally throw you off the site. He actually smiled. Understood, boss. It's been a year now. Brandon still works for Morrison Construction. He made crew supervisor last month, earned it fair and square. He's not the best employee we have, but he shows up, does the work, and keeps his mouth shut when it counts. Last week, he brought me coffee on site. Thought you might need this, boss. It's going to be a long day with the Chin project deadline. As he walked away to join his crew, I realized something Dad probably knew all along. Brandon wasn't a bad person. He was just someone who'd been allowed to believe that his gender was a qualification rather than a chromosome. Morrison Construction is now valued at $6.2 million. We've expanded into 3 neighboring counties, hired 20 new employees, and have a backlog of projects through next year. At industry events, I still sometimes get asked if I'm the secretary or if I'm there with my husband. I just smile and hand them my card. Jessica Morrison, owner and CEO, Morrison Construction. The ones who matter don't need the card. They already know who built this company, both the man who started it and the woman who's taking it into the future. And somewhere, I'd like to think Dad and Mom are watching, probably arguing about whether the new bridge design needs additional support beams. She'd be right. Of course, she always was. Just like she was right about which of her children would carry on the legacy.